I am in Vienna, Austria at the Naturhistorisches Museum. This is one of the greatest natural history museums in the world, so I am very excited to explore this historic institution. The Naturhistorisches Museum is housed inside a magnificent Italianate structure on the Maria Theresa Platz. The monument to Empress Maria Theresa stands out front. The exterior is largely identical to the Kunsthistorisches Museum across the square. By the way, I do have videos on the Art History Museum as well. The museums were commissioned by Kaiser Franz Josef on the new Ringstrasse, and the Natural History Museum opened in 1889. There is an allegorical statue representing Europe outside. She looks a lot like Lady Liberty. And here is America and Australia, represented by a Native American and an Aboriginal Australian. The interior of the Naturhistorisches Museum is fantastic. Architecturally, this may well be the most ornate natural history museum in the world. The grand staircase of this historicist masterpiece is incredible. The layout is the same as the grand stairway across the square at the Art History Museum, but this one is customized for the museum's subject matter and the details. There are many statues of natural scientists surrounding the stairway, such as Aristotle, Kepler, Newton, and von Linné. That is Georges Cuvier, the father of vertebrate paleontology and comparative anatomy. The ceiling painting is titled The Cycle of Life, an allegory of the rise and decline of humanity. This is the Emperor's picture, depicting Kaiser Franz I, the husband of Maria Theresa, surrounded by his massive collection of natural specimens with his curators. The Emperor did purchase the largest collection of natural objects in the world at that time, about 30,000 specimens, which laid the foundation for this museum. Here are just a few examples from the collection. And this is Maria Theresa's dog. Yep, the Empress loved this lapdog so much that she had it taxidermied. I cannot really find any information about this 250-year-old dog. I couldn't find its name anywhere, so if you know anything then please leave a comment. It was a feline breed, which was quite popular among European royalty in the 18th century. Wow, that is pretty amazing. Here is the rotunda of the Naturhistorisches Museum. While the galleries technically go through a chronological order of natural history, I want to start off with the dinosaurs. This big guy is a Diplodocus, a sauropod from Jurassic North America. Now this is not the real thing, but a cast replica of Dippy, whose excavation was financed by Andrew Carnegie, the American industrialist and later philanthropist. While the real Dippy is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Carnegie did make 10 casts of it and donated them to important natural history museums around the world, and he gave this one to Franz Josef. That is an Allosaurus skeleton. It was the most dangerous Jurassic predator. And in front of it is an animatronic Allosaurus, reproduced with supposedly accurate movements. That's pretty awesome. Here are the heads of two mortal enemies, the Triceratops and the T-Rex. This is an iguanodon, a legendary Cretaceous herbivore. This fossil was excavated in Germany. Here is the pterodactyl, with a wingspan of 4.5 meters, about 15 feet. Here is a result of fairly recent developments in paleontology, evidence that dinosaurs were often covered by feathers. That one also has terrifying claws. This is an archelon, the largest turtle that ever lived. This one is 4 meters wide, nearly 14 feet, and it ate jellyfish and cephalopods. Wow, these large rooms are magnificent, and many have paintings of natural landmarks and historic scenes. Here is the mighty woolly mammoth. And now we'll explore the museum's important prehistoric collection. Most items here originate from the former Austro-Hungarian Empire, as Central Europe has a fascinating prehistoric heritage. So in prehistoric times, there were first hunter-gatherer groups in Lower Austria. They eventually settled down to farm in the Neolithic period, and the region saw the advent of metal objects during the Copper, and then significant improvements in the Bronze Ages. These are Neolithic household items. Most of these objects are well over 6,000 years old. This female skull and headdress was found at the largest early Bronze Age burial site in Europe. The bronze headdress indicates that this was a wealthy woman. It's one of the earliest indications of differences in social status. That painting shows a bison hunt. And here are some bison bones with clear arrow punctuations, recovered from the many pile dwellings throughout Central Europe. Here is a gold hoard. Gold was highly coveted even in prehistoric times. These discs are the oldest gold finds in Austria and the second oldest in the world. Here is the entrance to see one of the most important, actually probably the most important artifact of the Naturhistorisches Museum, the Venus of Willendorf. This small and faceless nude woman, just 4 inches tall, is actually one of the oldest pieces of art in the entire world. The Venus was carved in the Upper Paleolithic period sometime between 24,000 and 22,000 BCE, so it is about 25,000 years old. That is insane. There are many different theories surrounding this Venus. She may have been a fertility figure or a good luck totem. She is named after the Roman goddess of love. However, it is not known if this figure was intended as a representation of female beauty. That's at least what the archaeologists who found it thought. The Venus of Willendorf was discovered in 1908 in Willendorf, Austria, right on the slopes of the Danube River. This remarkably intact statuette is composed of oolitic limestone, which is not native to the area where it was found. Because the statue is small and would have been easy to carry, it was probably made elsewhere, likely near Lake Garda in northern Italy. Being one of the oldest artistic depictions of a woman ever, the Venus has been an inspiration for many artists, especially Pablo Picasso, who had replicas of her in his studios. This is amazing to see, one of the oldest pieces of art in the world. Now this is Austria's oldest work of art, the figurine from Statzing. This slate depiction of a woman with a raised arm and twisted body dates back 36,000 years. It was also discovered near the Danube by Krems and is one of the oldest human sculptures in the world. The next gallery features epic archaeological finds from Hallstatt. Starting in the Bronze Age and escalating in the early Iron Age, salt was mined in immense quantities around what is now Hallstatt, Austria, and due to the nature of salt and conditions in the mine shafts, many of their everyday objects were well preserved over thousands of years. Like that shovel was found perfectly intact in the salt mines. There's a pickaxe and some more relics. That must have been backbreaking work. During the Iron Age, the miners would cut tablets of salt into heart shapes, and there are many hollow spots in the mine walls left by these. This illustrates how the walls of the mine galleries were pitted with pick marks, which was the result of a salt extraction technique to get tiny chips out at a time. This display simulates an abandoned mineshaft excavation near Hallstatt. Apparently they are incredibly difficult for archaeologists to excavate. That shoe was made sometime between 300 and 800 BCE. It was preserved in a salt mine. Here are more fur and sheepskin caps from Hallstatt. It's incredible that they're still preserved like that. These 3,000-year-old pieces of timber for stabilizing the mine shafts were preserved in the salt. It looks like they had quite a serious operation there. This beam is from the oldest wooden staircase in Europe, which was found in 2001 after surviving for 3,000 years intact. It had to be moved from its original location, and this piece had to be removed. Here is a display about cooking in the mines. They would actually prepare their stew underground. At least they had plenty of salt to spice it up. Here is a fragment of a fur sack, leather straps, and an animal bladder that was used as a knapsack. These artifacts were recovered from the famous Hallstatt cemetery. The early Iron Age cemetery is fascinating, as over 1,500 people were interred there, often with their prized objects, including some made of bronze, amber, and gold. There were two ways that people were interred at the Hallstatt cemetery, and it would be done side by side, so it's kind of a random assortment. This is a replica of an inhumation grave of two adult women from the cemetery, where the bodies were buried intact, with some of their personal belongings. I believe those are the real things. However, it appears that wealthier individuals would be cremated. The lady whose remains were placed on this dish with her belongings was definitely rich, so there are clear social status distinctions in the cemetery. Also in Hallstatt, they have one of Europe's most interesting ossuaries, as primarily in the 18th century, the skulls were painted, usually with symbolic flower wreaths. The society at Hallstatt and the excavations dating back to the 17th century caused that entire cultural epoch of prehistoric European history to be named after the Hallstatt culture. This is a replica ceremonial wagon based on remains from the 5th century BCE found in a cave near Brno, Czechia. The wagons had decorated bronze fittings and iron tires. This room is dedicated to the cultural changes from the Iron Age until the Middle Ages. There's a painting of the mysterious Stonehenge. Here are just some of the over 300 bronze sickles that were buried in the ground together. They were most likely hidden to avoid theft. There is a horse skull with its iron ring snaffle, and a human skull that was nailed to a post as a trophy. These bronze urns from 600 BCE were found in burial mounds. That is a magnificent piece. Here are two iron druid crowns from Roseldorf. Crowns like these were the only type of Celtic ceremonial headwear used in mainland Europe, though most were destroyed on purpose before sacrifice. These helmets were damaged in ritual by 450 BCE. After the Roman period, then the following migration period, the early Middle Ages started in what is now Austria about 1,000 years ago, and that's where the timeline stops here. Now we go further back in time to earlier human evolution with this wax Neanderthal. This guy's hunting some big game that's probably extinct now. There's an older Neanderthal crouching next to him. This is a replica Neanderthal skeleton. They existed 50,000 years ago here in Europe and the Near East. Those are replica early Homo sapiens skulls, based on those found in South Africa. The oldest known human fossils found in Europe date to 40,000 years ago. They were found in Romania by the Danube migratory routes. They have replicas of the Java man and Flores skulls, evidence of the first migration outside of Africa. This Homo erectus has caught a fish, so he must have a very big brain. Here is a male and female Australopithecus afarensis based on the fossils of Lucy. Here is a skeleton model of Lucy, who lived about 3.2 million years ago and was named after a Beatles song. This display is on the juveniles, the children uncovered at that first Australopithecus family site in Hadar, Ethiopia. Here is a cast of the Laetoli footprints, which were left in volcanic ash by 3 bipedal hominids some 3.6 million years ago. And here is an up-to-date counter of the ever-growing human population. We have reached 8 billion. Depictions of marvelous world landmarks line the walls in here. There's Borobudur, the largest Buddhist temple in the world. And here they compare the skeletons of man and monkey. This is an original part of the frieze below the dome on this museum. It actually makes fun of the Darwinian idea that humans are descended from apes, which the museum now espouses. That was of course a big debate when this museum opened, and you can see the monkey showing the boy's face in the mirror and trying to give him the origin of species, while he looks away in distress. That is the skull of a mammoth over a prehistoric hut replica, composed of mammoth bones and furs. Never seen that before. That is a giant armadillo. These are cave bear skeletons. There's even little baby cave bears. And this is a woodland bison skeleton from the Ice Age, about 700,000 years old. And here is a stag moose skeleton. The displays actually start off with a mineralogy collection, which is among the best in the world. Those are some great big samples of amethyst. There are several big galleries full of all sorts of valuable mineral specimens. I do appreciate how the minerals are displayed in old museum cabinets. Those are some fossils, along with new complex minerals that also formed around 600 million years ago. There's a big chunk of amethyst. There is some petrified wood. That is a fascinating aragonite iron flower. There is an alpine fissure in this wall. It's composed of rock crystal, feldspar, calcite, and chlorites. This section of the museum may not be too different from how it looked 100 years ago. I do enjoy the historicist architectural elements of this museum. It's similar to the Kunsthistorisches Museum. There's a scene of the Wieliczka salt mine in Poland. And here's actual rock salt from the historic Wieliczka mine, which is one of the original UNESCO World Heritage Sites. This giant block of salt from Pakistan was shown at the Vienna World Exhibition of 1873. That's cool. That is a handstone, a piece of ore carved and decorated with miniature scenes. They have some bigger ones across the square at the art museum. Here is some crystal jewelry, paired with the crystals from which they were created. And here's a 117 kilogram chunk of topaz. This is orbicular granite from Finland, which was created after different minerals crystallized around a nucleus, as magma slowly cooled. All of these cases are full of meteorites. That's a piece of the Nyajnya meteorite, which fell in the Ukrainian Carpathians in 1866. At the time, this was the largest known stony meteorite. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen so many meteorites in my life. And here are some samples of moon rocks and even moon soil, including a lunar basalt rock, collected by astronaut David Scott on the moon during the Apollo 15 mission. And here are some Mars meteorites. Martian rocks do manage to float to Earth and survive. That's a Knocklight meteorite that fell near the Nile River in 1911. This is the Copernican planetary machine, built by a German astronomer in 1753 at the request of Empress Maria Theresa. It has an orrery at the top, showing the relative positions of the planets and moons in the solar system, all driven by the clockwork mechanism below. That is really cool. This gallery is about rocks and the Earth's geology. That scene shows Franz Josef Land. It's a remote Russian archipelago in the Arctic Ocean, which was discovered by the Austro-Hungarian North Pole expedition, so it was named after the Kaiser. Those are leaf fossils from Carboniferous swamp forests. Here's a Dunkleosteus fossil from Ohio. It was one of the biggest predators of the Devonian period. I love how old school this museum is. Here are some sea life fossils, including a horseshoe crab trail. You can see the ribs of the Plateosaurus in the window. That skeleton is largely original. There's a painting of Badlands in Wyoming, where many dinosaur fossils have been discovered. This is the skeleton of a small Prodemotherium, excavated in Czechia. It's been here since 1885. And here are some oysters and giant mussels from Lower Austria. So that was part 1 of the Naturhistorisches Museum, which does indeed have to be one of the best natural history museums in the world, but there is more upstairs, primarily lots of taxidermy, so go check out part 2 if you want to see thousands of dead animals. It's an astonishing collection. That video is linked in the description. I also have videos on other natural history museums, and a wide variety of attractions here in Vienna, across Europe and America. Additionally, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to my channel for more. I'd really appreciate that, and thank you for watching.